Hello, everyone, and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk, another Facebook Live version of our podcast here at Absolute Trust Counsel. And I'm Kirsten Howe, the host of Absolute Trust Talk. I'm very happy to have you here today. I'm going to be talking today with my guest, Katharina Dress. So oftentimes when family members age, other family members have to step in and help with care, help with decision making, and sometimes that results in conflict within the family. And so today what we're going to be talking about is how Katharina, who is a mediator and a facilitator, helps families sort of understand each other's viewpoints and reach agreement, and ultimately we hope make good decisions for their elderly family member. That's what we're going to be talking about. I am going to officially introduce her in just a minute, but as you know, if you watch this with any regularity, I got a couple of housekeeping things I have to get out of the way first. First of all, we are recording this, so if you want to watch it again, or you missed part of it, or you want a friend to watch it, it'll be on our website, absolutetrustcounsel.com, as a video. Takes us a few days, but you can find it there. And also it will be a podcast, so you can find that on our website, and you can also find it wherever you normally listen to podcasts. Second thing, at the end here, we're going to talk for 20 minutes or so, and then at the end we can answer questions that you have. If you are watching live, you can type a question into the comment section there on Facebook, and I will ask those questions of Katharina at the end. If you're not watching live, I'm sorry, no questions for you. So join us next time. Watch it live. Okay, so housekeeping out of the way, I'm going to introduce my guest. My guest is Katharina Dress. She is a certified mediator, facilitator, conflict coach, and trainer, and she specializes in working with older adults and their families. She also works with home caregivers and other aging services providers. Her company, Aging in Harmony, she founded in 2007, and she has supported families and caregivers who are struggling with conflicts about their future and their aging loved ones and their care and their estates. All of that stuff, she does it in person. She does it by phone. She does it on Zoom, and she'll talk to us a little bit about that, I'm sure. She has over 30 years of experience as a facilitator, and not only working with families, she also has worked with large community-based organizations as well, and I can only imagine what that's like. When you think about the school board meetings that we've been hearing about recently in connection with reopening the school, so I envision something like that. She's also an experienced trainer and a coach, and she teaches, she does workshops, she teaches other people how to do the things that she does. So she's an expert, and she's so expert that she teaches other people. She is a member of the American Society on Aging and also the Association for Conflict Resolution. So now I am turning to welcome my guest, Katharina Dress. We're so grateful that you've found time with all the busy things that you have taken on in your life to talk to us. So thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Kirsten. I'm really excited to be on your podcast.
Great. Yeah, we're very excited to have you here. This is something that we see a lot. We do see this quite a bit in our practice when typically the parent is aging and the children have to step in and start helping with things, various things. There's so much to help with sometimes, and it can cause conflict. But let's just kind of start with the basics. What exactly does an elder mediator do?
Yeah, it's all of the above, what you already mentioned. I help with people when anybody in the family starts thinking there is a conflict here and we should address it, preferably sooner rather than later. Anywhere on the journey of aging, it can be about estate planning issues. It can be about power of attorney issues. It can be about financial planning issues. care planning issues. Where should mom or dad live? Is it time to give up the car key? Anything on the journey of aging, from when somebody in the family first gets concerned until, frankly, after passing. The adult children sometimes still fight about the family home afterwards. And if they want to avoid a legal battle, they come to me.
Yeah. Are you seeing, focusing specifically on still dealing with a living elder? Are there short list of the most common issues that you see families struggling with?
I think I would say two. One is if mom or dad is somewhere in the early to mid stages of dementia, and other people have to step in to take on responsibility. And maybe there are or there aren't powers of attorney in place, but people aren't necessarily trusting the person who has the power of attorney. Or the power of attorney sometimes doesn't understand that this doesn't mean they make the decisions on their own. They're supposed to make the decision with the elder and in the best interest of the elder. So that's an often concern. And another is, powers of attorneys fighting amongst each other or with other siblings. Oftentimes one person has power of attorney for the estate or the finances, and another sibling has the power of attorney for the person or medical decisions. And if they can't work together, we have a problem. Or one sibling has both, and the other siblings want to know what that person is doing, and they're not as forthcoming as it would.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think people don't necessarily appreciate that. Of course, the two different types of power of attorney, over the person and the healthcare and the finances, they kind of do have to be able to work together because they need each other. You can't make a healthcare decision that requires the expenditure of money in a silo. You've got to talk to the person with the power of attorney. Yeah.
And parents often don't think about that when they assign somebody. They just think, okay, my son is really good with money, so he's the power of attorney for finances. And my daughter is the one, oh dear, I forgot to turn off the phone. I got to change that. Sorry about that. So my daughter, she's the one who I'd want to go with me to the doctor, right? You don't think about what the relationship between those kids has been historically.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, when you're working with a family, how does that get started? I mean, who most often is the person to contact you?
Typically, it's the sandwich generation woman in the family who starts everything having to do with planning for mom's or dad's later years. We see that too. Yeah.
It's either a daughter or a daughter-in-law.
Yeah, sometimes it's a daughter-in-law, but more often I hear from the daughter, and if there is no daughter, then the daughter-in-law pushes her husband. She does the research, but she makes sure her husband talks to me.
Yeah. Interesting. That's what we experience too when clients are coming in with legal related issues for their elder family members. It's the daughter or the son pushed by his wife. Yeah. Okay. So when you're doing a mediation with a family concerning an elder, who typically is participating in the mediation?
That really depends. I would say in about 50% of the cases, I deal with the elder is too far on the journey of dementia or even past already, that they are not actively involved anymore. Whenever it's possible, I still try to talk to the elder myself to get a firsthand impression of how they feel about things.
Right.
So in about 50% of the cases, the elder is one of the parties, and the other 50%, they're not. And it's just adult children fighting, or as you mentioned earlier, service providers. For instance, a home care agency often gets stuck in the middle between what their elder client wants and what the bill-paying children want, and that can lead to lots of caregiver turnover. And so it's really in the best interest of the home care agency to get a neutral involved.
Do they ever initiate that with you?
Sometimes.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, it is smart if they're constantly getting fired by one side or the other, and then they have to restaff over and over again. You know, that's a waste of their resources too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Very interesting. So, I know every case is going to be different. We know that. We work in this same kind of space, so we understand that. But typically, how many sessions or how long does an elder mediation take?
So my sessions are 3 to 4 hours. And now, even before Zoom, if the elder is still actively involved, I usually start late morning, go for 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and schedule an extensive break, and then continue. But I don't do more than 3 or 4 hours in a day. You know, some mediators go all day. These are highly emotional issues, and I don't think people can be at their best for that long. So 3 to 4 hours. And then ideally, it's 2 sessions. I mean, sometimes we need more sessions. I've worked with people anywhere from 1 session to 6 sessions with the same family. But 2 sessions is good, because in the first session, you can really clarify issues and you can see where everybody is with them and figure out what you don't know yet, and then reach a partial agreement about what information needs to be gathered and gathers it until the next meeting, and then come back and have a second session and make the decision.
Right.
So that's really ideal.
Okay. So of course it depends on how much progress is being made and how many issues there are to get through, I guess. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mentioned, and you also mentioned that you work on Zoom. So tell us about that, and tell us how that works, what you think about it.
Yes, I had the great luck to participate in the first ever face-to-face training in online mediation that was being offered in the summer of 2019 in the Bay Area. And I went, and people came from all over the world, from as far as India. And then we had practice sessions every month for a whole year, so we could really explore the different technologies. Some was just in writing, some was audio, and some was video. And of course, Zoom is the most common platform for that. And so I got a lot of experience before I actually did it with my clients. And I was just so grateful that I had that experience when Zoom hit, because it is different. It's a little harder to really create that personal connection on Zoom than it is if they're in the same room together. It's also, confidentiality is very important in mediation. So to make sure that the setting is accurate, that people can't, slip things by me or save notes that are not supposed to.
Right.
And also to make sure that nobody else is in the room, so I actually belong to an international organization for online mediators, and they created guidelines for video mediation, and I adhere to those guidelines and share those with my clients.
That's really quite amazing that you did all of that training 7 or 8 months before you ended up needing it, and nobody knew you were going to need it. Wow.
Very lucky.
Very lucky. Yeah. Or you can take credit for it. You were prescient. You were just thinking ahead of your time. So that's fantastic. And but you're using it a lot now, so it must be effective.
It's much more effective than I thought it would be. And I think part is because if the elder generation participates, now because of COVID, they all have Zoom on their computer. They all are used to using it. So
Right.
Their comfort level is completely different than if I had tried to offer this to that generation before
Right.
COVID.
Right. Yeah, we've all had to make that shift, whether we wanted to or not. Also, I would guess, I mean, my families can be spread out all over the country, and this Zoom mediation must make it easier for the whole family to participate.
Yes, and I did offer, for individual parties who were far away to participate online before, or on the phone, even sometimes from Europe or other parts of the world. But now there is an equal playing field because
Right.
everybody is on.
Everybody's on the same platform. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to have some people in the room and some people on the phone. It just doesn't feel the same. Yeah, I get that. Interesting. Okay, so do you want to talk a little bit about the trainings, the kinds of trainings that you offer?
The thing that's closest to my heart about that is I usually offer a workshop series that's called Heart to Heart Conversations for the Challenges of Aging, and or about the challenges of aging. And it's really a series of workshops that's drop-in, where people can learn some of my tricks of the trade, and we do diet exercises where in breakout groups they practice in little role plays with each other. Focus on different things like how to say something that's difficult to hear in an effective way, how to reflect back something someone else said with empathy so they feel really heard, how to make requests rather than demands, things like that. And I really enjoy doing that. And I used for many, many years, I offered these series face-to-face, usually hosted by senior communities. And now, of course, we went on Zoom with that. And, I did 2 series last year, and now that's really working very well. I don't have one scheduled right this moment, but once the events are scheduled again, they can be found on my website. Okay. So that's either free or by donation, whatever people want.
Oh, that's great. I mean, those are the kinds of things, those subjects that you just mentioned, we all need to get good at, right? That's just living a good life and communicating effectively. So that's really great that you offer that.
People always tell me they come to me because they have an issue, with an elder or with their siblings about an elder. But then once we start working together, they say, oh, I can use this with my husband. I can use this at work. I can use this with my teenage kids. This is great.
Right. It's all the same skills. We all need to get better at all of them. So maybe not you, but speaking for myself. Okay, well, we do have some questions. So let's turn to, okay, so the first question here is, what kind of training did you get to become an elder mediator?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, because mediation in general in California is not a regulated field. It is in some other states. But I did what everybody does in California. You take like a 30 to 40 hour general mediation training, and then you volunteer for a nonprofit mediation agency to get experience in all kinds of different mediations. I actually volunteered for a couple of different agencies, just so I really know what I'm doing. And then after a couple of years of that, I went all the way to the East Coast to take a 4-day specialized training in elder mediation specifically, because I knew from the outset that that was the niche that I wanted to serve. And then I also have had over 10 years of actually training in mediation that's rooted in compassionate communication. It's a special mediation style. I don't use that exclusively, but I find it very, very helpful because dementia is such a great issue. And when a participant in the mediation is in the early to mid stages of dementia, they can't make rational decisions anymore, right? But you can't make the decisions for them because the pushback will be so hard that you won't get anywhere. So you got to involve them. And compassionate communication really gets people out of their heads and into their hearts. And once you connect on that level, you can find understanding and creative solutions where the elders may accept things that they wouldn't have been willing to accept otherwise.
Okay. I have a question here, actually from a financial advisor who's a colleague of mine. The first thing he said is a comment, and I'll just read it. I tell my clients that if they are the eldest daughter, that they are it. And that's what we were talking about earlier. It's typically the eldest daughter who's the one getting everybody wrangled together. His question is, are the mediations binding?
No, that's a very good question. So I'm not an attorney mediator.
Right.
And so the mediations that I offer, the outcome is a memorandum of understanding. You know, I help the parties draft it and I type it up and I send it to them and ask them to approve of the wording. And but it's not a legally binding agreement. However, in my mediation contract, I explain this to people and I ask them, A, to get legal advice or any other expert advice they may need to make informed decisions, and B, if they want to have a legally binding agreement, then that they should take the memorandum of understanding and have an attorney translate it into a legally binding agreement.
Right. Okay.
But I want to say one more thing about that.
Oh, yeah.
Since people come to me, you know, with a family issue, it's a family issue to them, right? They choose me because they don't want to have a legal battle. So in most cases, they really don't need a legally binding agreement, something that they agreed upon in good faith. The implementation rate of those kinds of memorandum of understanding is very high. It's about 80%.
Oh, okay. Well, that's.
I mean, that's what studies show, not my personal experience.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting and good to know. So here's another question. Should people contact you even if they doubt that the other parties in conflict would agree to mediation?
Yes, absolutely yes. And I'm so glad you're asking that, because that's the biggest hurdle, that people don't think the process can work. And so they don't even talk to me.
They don't even try. So what would you start with in a case like that?
So number one, I can help the person who wants to go to mediation enroll the other people. In my experience, if party one is in conflict with party two, anything party one is going to suggest party two is going to say no to. So,
especially if it's your big brother. Yeah.
So I try to discuss, well, who is somebody who might be a neutral, like an aunt or an uncle, who I could talk to also, and have them ask party two just to ask if they're willing to have an initial conversation with me. No obligation on their part. Right? So I get a chance to talk to them. And the initial conversations with each party are completely confidential. Mm-hmm. I want to hear from each person exactly what their perspective is. And after that, when they hear that I really understand where they're coming from and I'm really in their corner just as much as I'm in the corner of the person who initiated the process, they might be willing to. That's the one thing. The other thing is I offer conflict coaching too. So if we can't move forward and get the parties to the table, I can do a series of typically phone or Zoom sessions where I teach the client some of my tools.
Okay, so the one
and role plays and everything.
Yeah.
And so then they can approach the other people differently.
Yeah. The one who is willing can be trained up a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
I got it. Okay. I got one last question. Oh, so this is a good one. Can you give us an example of a successful mediation, of course, without discussing too much detail or client names, but just a good story.
Yes. One of my favorite cases actually spanned 5 years.
Oh my God.
People came to me first when there was an issue about whether or not mom or dad should sell the home and, reorganize their finances. And there was resistance. And so mom and dad and the siblings came together and we had a couple of sessions and they agreed. And at the time, they didn't even have an estate plan and they were in the 80s. So that was part of the agreement that they had made at that point to get an estate plan and who should be powers of attorney and all that. So, and then
agreement.
Yeah. So then we stayed in touch for, 5 years. And then they came back to me and said, mom and dad have gone downhill some and we don't think it's safe for them to live alone anymore, to drive. And it's time to have another one of these series. And so we had another series of couple of sessions. They were all face-to-face. The last one was actually the week before the lockdown. And they made new agreements and I've been in touch and they've, what often happens is the agreements don't get implemented exactly because once you try to, you figure out that there's new barriers and then you renegotiate. But mom and dad definitely moved to a safe setting. So I'm really so moved by that family, sticking with it and sticking with me for all those years.
Yeah, and just recognizing how valuable that process was to them, that they kept coming back. Yeah. That's what you like, is the repeat customers. Then you're really helping them. Okay, so very good. So, all right, Katharina, I just want to thank you so much for joining us here today. And why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you?
Yes, thank you. And thanks again for having me, Kirsten. I really enjoyed chatting with you. I always enjoy chatting. And my preference is that people just give me a call, 510-356-7830. I'm of a generation that grew up without computers, even though I'm quite computer literate now. I still prefer to talk over, email exchanges, but of course they can email me too. And that's Katharina. I think you'll put it somewhere. Katharina at Aging and Harmony. The spelling is a little unusual. And we'll set up, in the first contact, all we do is look at our calendars and find a time when they and I are available for up to an hour for complimentary initial consultation. So they can really tell me confidentially what's going on from their perspective. And then we talk about how I may be able to help. I think it's important to hear first what's going on rather than answer their questions about, how I work and how much it costs and all that. I need to hear what's going on first so I can customize a process that works for their situation.
Right. Okay. Well, very good. Thank you again. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kirsten. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. Okay, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope you got something valuable from that. I know I did. I always do. I have really great guests, I have to say. if there's any legal issue that we can help you with, we would be happy to do that. You can contact us through our website at absolutetrustcounsel.com. We do initial meetings just the way Katharina does. It's complimentary to find out what we can do for you in the estate planning realm. So please go ahead and reach out to us. And I am glad you were here today, and I look forward to connecting with you next time.